Right, afternoon, guys. Hope you're well. Welcome to another session of Help Desk. What we are going to be looking at today is chapter 3 of your prescribed textbook, literally discussing what's happening with the people component associated with service desk roles and responsibilities. I think if you remember our previous two sessions, we looked at the whole concept of evolution of the help desk into the service desk platform, and also discussing what is happening in our second session with the whole concept of the different components that obviously make up any distinctive service desk. So in today's session, what we want to look at is the people component of it, just understand exactly what these roles are all about and how literally individuals play an important role associated with the whole concept of the service desk as far as your specific environment there is concerned. So ultimately, the actual objectives associated with today's session or this particular chapter in general is looking at the principal service desk job categories, also understanding specifically the set of skills that are necessary or needed to become a successful frontline service provider. What are these skill sets and what does it actually do? Remember, we've mentioned the fact that the whole concept of your service desk is that it literally is the bottom line associated with any distinctive business. So if it's not handled accordingly or appropriately, it can detrimentally affect what's happening with your businesses and ultimately cause massive backlash dependent. And then you're also looking at management opportunities within that same service desk environment, and also looking at the basic roles that are within the supporting environment associated with your service desk, and also what are the actual characteristics associated with a successful team when it comes to your service desk. So I think that the whole focus of the actual chapter in general is just looking at what individuals can bring to the table when it comes to working with your service desk and how that is relevant within your distinctive environments when it comes to your specific ICT and services that are there. So if you look at what we've got in terms of what's happening there, remember, people would play an intricate variety of roles, really, when it comes to these particular service desks. And ultimately, the principal roles that are looking at direct engagement and literally support of customers, and obviously ensure that these customers are distinctly satisfied with whatever service that you've provided them, is the frontline service desk providers and obviously your service desk management personnel. So these two roles are ultimately most important that you find, because remember, your frontline service desk providers are literally your first point of contact. So ultimately, what that says there is that if that first point of contact is not applicable, or if that first point of contact is not undertaken accordingly, it can detrimentally affect the business and the image of the business at large. So it's important that whoever's at the frontline platform there is someone who literally can provide the whole concept of what is happening as far as your service desk there is concerned. Obviously, the supporting roles, there's a less direct customer support. I think you've had certain instances in your own personal experiences where you call in and probably it's one specific issue that individual might not be clued in or might not be able to assist. They'll then ask for their supervisors to come in and probably try and provide a favorable proposition of what is happening as far as whatever issues that you might be encountering there. So there's less of a direct customer support when it comes to supporting roles. And then obviously each role is distinctively important and requires a specific set of skills. There's supposed to be adequate training. We've mentioned training before, and this training is not just on the product or service that is being provided, but also looking at how you engage with clientele. I think it's very important for us to realize that you can be an expert in the product, you can be an expert in the technology, but if you're not trained on how to deal with clients, or how to deal with customers, that whole knowledge, or that whole that whole issue of you being an expert becomes something that is null and void, because if you cannot disseminate that knowledge accordingly to the clients or the customers that you're dealing with in your environment, then ultimately the whole purpose of you being in that front desk position becomes null and void, because you are not capable of specifically engaging with clients or customers accordingly. So it's important for you to have the appropriate training there, and to acquire those specific set of skills that enable you to engage with clients, customers accordingly, to avoid any discrepancies that might arise in you not doing so. And then obviously the sizes that we mentioned before. Remember, we talked about small, medium, and large service desks. We also reiterated what's happening in terms of the actual numbers and at the specific attributes associated with them in the previous session that we had. So obviously roles and responsibilities, opportunities of growth are supposed to be incorporated there, because remember, normally when you start at a service desk, literally it's more of a stepping stone environment. So you need to have applicable advancement opportunities that look at you growing within that industry accordingly. And at the same time, there should be some kind of commitment from the actual organization to look at customer satisfaction and the willingness to invest in a distinctive service desk. I think, like we mentioned in previous sessions, that there was a time where organizations and institutions didn't see the need for these particular service desks, or didn't understand what it does in terms of the image of the business, growth of the business at large. So I think there's an importance there in companies making sure that customers are distinctively satisfied, and at the same time also looking at the whole concept of these customers having something that has been invested in to provide quality service associated with their distinctive environments. So obviously to have a successful career within these environments, it's important to ensure that that you develop new skills. If you stagnate, then there's no growth, and obviously there's no advancement opportunities that arise, because you're not developing yourself in terms of individual as an individual rather, and literally there's supposed to be new skills that you're supposed to be getting across your career platform there, if you want some kind of success involved within. And then also looking at assessing your skills. All right, being always ensuring that you're up to standard in terms of content, you're up to standard in terms of current industry and specifics, just to make sure that you are in line with what is current, with what is happening, and also making sure that you've got a positive contribution to your service desk team. What are you actually bringing to the fold that ensures your being part of the team, that ensures you providing quality services to your clients and customers at large. And then also looking at making sure that you understand that you're within a team framework. So that also means that you need to accommodate the other individuals within your team, valuing their specific contributions accordingly, so that obviously you move as a team. And remember, when you move as a unit, everything works accordingly, and everything literally goes to plan. You get minimal issues when you work as a team. But if you individualize issues when you're within some semblance of a team effort, you can cause distinctive discrepancies there. And obviously, some desire to satisfy customers. I think what this literally means is that you need to have an attitude that more or less looks at assisting anyone who calls in. And you want to be that individual where once the phone is put down, there's some semblance of satisfaction in the service that you've given. And you can also literally confirm that the individual that you are dealing with is happy or is literally satisfied with the service that you've given. And then you also need to put yourself in the customer's shoes. I think it's always important to look at it from that perspective, that more often than not, we always concentrate on these terms to say satisfy the customer or ensure that you deal with the customer accordingly. The list will go on and on. I've just mentioned the whole issue of training. But at the same time, I think it's important that if you were to put yourself in the client's or the customer's shoes, it gives you an idea of what the whole experience is all about. Because are you going to be happy with the service that you're given? And you've been the one being given that service. So that's important for you to take into consideration there, that whenever you engage with clients, it's not just a question of just throwing the term satisfaction all over the place without understanding what it actually means. The service that you're dishing out, are you comfortable with that same service being given to you? If so, then we're good to go. If not, then we need to work on something to ensure that that service is undertaken accordingly. And obviously, the categories of the actual jobs that are within that environment, you've got the frontline providers that we mentioned earlier on, the management personnel that are also associated with looking at assisting any of the frontline customers that are there, or rather frontline providers that are there, should they have any issues with the product or the service that is being questioned. And then you've got frontline service providers that are looking at it, directly engaging with the actual clientele. I think that's the reason why it's imperative to ensure that whichever individual is incorporated here is clued on what is happening as far as the product or the service is concerned. And not just that, but can also appropriately and accordingly engage with clients within a professional manner. And also, they ensure that this particular service desk functions accordingly. There's no success of the service desk without the frontline service providers. That's the reason why it's critical, because like we were mentioning a couple of moments ago, these are the first points of contact. So literally, when you walk into any environment or when you call into any environment, the first individual that you see or the first individual that you speak to, if their attitude is inappropriate, if their demeanor is inappropriate, if there's a lack of professionalism anywhere across the board, it detrimentally affects the actual image that you've got as far as the actual institution itself, not just the institution, but the product that is being sold or that is being delivered, and at the same time the service as well. So that's the reason why these frontline providers are ultimately important, because they're literally the face of the actual institution organization that is providing these ICT services. So if that particular face is not professional, it's not engaging, it's not welcoming, then it causes a whole host of problems. We've mentioned that a lot of businesses have been lost due to bad reviews. A lot of businesses have been made due to a lot of good reviews. So I think it's important to look at it from that perspective. And again, I think it that then introduces that third bullet point there that mentions within under your service providers, that says you're looking at an influence of customers' opinions of the entire company or department. So there you have it. So if you've got a negative influence or a negative image in terms of who you are as an individual and so on, that then links directly to the organization that you're working for, the department that you're working for. And again, that can be a massive blow when it comes to business. as far as your specific environments are concerned. So the success of the actual service desk rather itself is linked directly to these individuals. And then obviously the different types of frontline providers. You've got dispatchers, you've got level 1 analysts, you've got level 1 specialists. These are the typical individuals that you'd find within the frontline service environment. And if you want to look at a basic a sample of what that organizational chart would look like, this is what you've got. You've got a senior service desk manager, you've got a service desk manager, and then a couple of team leaders or supervisors that are there. And then again, on your last level there, as far as your organizational chart is concerned, you naturally have your dispatchers, your level 1 analysts, and then a level 1 specialists that are there. So this is the kind of structure that you've got associated with your frontline environment. And then the basic responsibilities. So if you look at pages 80 and 81 in your prescribed textbooks there, you find these responsibilities, the responsibilities associated with the service desk and the processes performed by a distinctive service desk in terms of what is happening there. And then when you're looking at professional responsibilities, then naturally, this is when you're literally reflecting on how members of an actual service desk team are literally expected to conduct their specific responsibilities. How are you undertaking your responsibilities? So I think that's the reason why you always hear the term these particular individuals are very professional or aren't professional. It's looking at how are they conducting the responsibilities associated with the actual job descriptions. How are they providing a distinctive service to a client or a customer or a set of individuals? What is actually happening there? How are they conducting themselves? So that's where professionalism comes into the foray there. But obviously, if you want to elucidate on that a little bit more, look through pages 80 to 82 for both your job responsibilities as well as professional responsibilities within your environment. What are the required skills that are necessary? I think it's very easy for us to say you need to get the special skills to engage with customers accordingly or to engage with clients accordingly. But there has to be obviously an indication of what these actual skills are. So this is what this particular slide aims to do. I think if you can just enlarge it a bit so that it's a bit legible. So these are the required skills that are relevant when it comes to the whole service desk environment, that people component that we are talking about. And I think the main point, if you look at what we've got on screen there, there has to be some kind of realism, or there has to be some kind of a natural aspect associated with the way in which you assist clients or the way in which you assist your customers. So there has to be some kind of genuine enjoyment associated with helping individuals. Right? It has to be genuine. It's not just a question of, yes, it's my regular 9 to 5, or it's my regular job. I'm doing this just to pay the bills. The list to go on and on. But you have to like what you're doing. And remember, the brilliance of liking what you're doing or enjoying what you're doing or being engaged with what you're doing is that you tend to provide a better service in that environment. All right, whatever it is that you're doing, even if you're not looking at specifically from a service desk environment, but whatever it is that you look at undertaking literally, what it typically ensures or means is that you are definitely going to provide A+ service because you are enjoying what you're doing. But remember, if you don't enjoy what it is that you're undertaking or what it is that you are all about, and when it comes to the professional environment, it means that you are definitely going to provide service that is below par, because it's a means to an end. But if you enjoy what it is that you're doing, there's some kind of genuine aspect associated with the way in which you're undertaking content, it makes it enjoyable. So that's a skill that or that's something that you need to take into consideration, and then ultimately ensure that you work well with others. All right, you enjoy being part of the team, or you understand what it means to be part of a team. You're not working as an individual, and you're also looking at, like what we mentioned before, valuing. You're typically looking at valuing what your colleagues are all about, what they contribute, and also ensure that you move as a unit. And then naturally, when you're looking at what type of training that you need. So obviously training is there to understand the technical aspect of it, but not just the technical aspect. You're also looking at customer service skills. Because it's important to understand that, yes, while you can be technically inclined, you understand exactly how a specific product or technology functions. Like we were mentioning a couple of moments ago, you also still need to know specifically how to properly engage with your clientele. So what are these skills that we're looking at? Naturally, these skills would include the whole concept of business skills, the technical skills we're talking about, soft skills, being able to look at self-management as well, as far as your specific environment there would go. So we are going to be looking at each one of these and understand exactly what they are and how relevant they are when it comes to ensuring the appropriate success for any distinctive help desk that is there. So when you're looking at your business skills, let's see. Okay, there you go. Right. So when you're looking at your business skills, all right, it's understanding what business language is all about, and also being able to identify business problems and be in an environment where you can provide a distinctive solution to any of these business problems that might arise. So have some kind of analytical mind from a business point of view to be able to understand exactly what is going on, to be able to identify specific issues or problems and how to appropriately solve or provide a distinctive solution to them. Industry knowledge, understanding exactly what's happening with the profession. These are there's a unique set of skills obviously associated with this profession within your service desk environment, and then also understand exactly what's happening, the importance of meeting the customer's needs. So this falls within the specifics now as far as these unique skill sets are concerned. Understand the customer's needs because, like we mentioned before, you want to ensure that if it's a call-in, if it's a chat, if it's an email, whichever means of engagement that is there, even if it's a face-to-face encounter, you want to ensure that by the time that individual leaves your service desk, or that individual puts the phone down or leaves the chat and so on, they are satisfied in terms of the level of technical know-how that you've literally portrayed, and ultimately ensuring that whatever issue that they had has been solved. If not, you obviously need to look at the closest alternative, but it's important to ensure that whoever calls in, whoever connects to your particular service desk has some kind of satisfaction in terms of the way in which you've resolved or tried to resolve their issues, and then knowing how to manage expectations. We've talked about expectations before, and we mentioned that it's very important to set realistic expectations, and at the same time to ensure that these expectations are set accordingly. There's no ambiguity according to what your customers or clients' expectations should be, so that they know that, look, I expect that if I've got an issue with my connection and I call in, I expect a resolution within this particular time frame. That's a typical example of an expectation, to say, okay, look, within 2 hours, my issue should be resolved, as an example. If it's not resolved, then obviously there should be certain issues, and then that needs to be dealt with accordingly. So it's important to set these realistic expectations. At the same time, also look at ensuring that you try and stick to these particular expectations, manage them accordingly. I think it also goes back to what we've discussed in previous sessions before, your SLAs, that what they do is at least they ensure that your customers or clients understand exactly what kind of level of service they expect from you, and ultimately what needs to happen should it fall with outside that expectation range, dependent on your setups that are there. So obviously, as far as these particular skills sets are concerned, what we are actually also still looking at is that it's not just from a service desk point of view. It's in any distinctive profession. You need to have these business skills. What we're talking about, being able to identify problems, analyze issues from a business point of view, and obviously provide for distinctive solutions there. It's not just limited to the service desk environment, but to any particular profession that you've got. And these particular skills literally are supposed to have some kind of growth process. Right? So every time that you're looking at acquiring educational experience, your skill set level should typically increase as well. And obviously being able to observe certain activities that occur where you distinctively work. I think you might find that our organizational culture is different across the board. Even if the particular service, product, or technology is one and the same, you find that cultures within different organizations are different across. So it's important to obviously be able to observe and to understand that not everything is applicable across. So it's not a template that you can use across even the same industry environments, but just understanding that there's a difference there according to the organization, depending on what that organization is all about, what's the mission of that organization, what's the actual making, what is their core setup associated with providing whatever service, product, or technology that is there. And also the actual basic skills that you then need. Understand the language of business, all right? Know when to be formal and informal, dependent on environments. And like we've mentioned before, there's always a thin line there. So I think it's important to understand what distinctive language to use within specific environments. So you're understanding and speaking the language of business, that whole issue of being able to solve and analyze problems that we were mentioning earlier on. And remember, when you're looking at analysis, it sometimes becomes quite difficult for you to analyze without the appropriate data. So like we've mentioned before, that initially these service desks, what advantage that they provide for is that there's a central point of data collection that you can then use to state that, okay, look, we've been having similar reports on this particular technology or this particular part of technology on this particular network in terms of speed, quality, and you name it. How can we resolve it? Then you can analyze accordingly from the intricate data that you'd have gotten or collected. But if you've got no point where this particular data is being collected, then it means analysis is really a shot in the dark, because you don't have anything to go by. So it's important to analyze the data and to use it accordingly, so that you can then look at the proper quantification of improving your opportunities, and then at the same time understand how to look at developing things that are cost effective, that are beneficial to the business. Remember, the whole purpose of being in a business is to make a profit or to make a living, literally. So what it typically then means is that you need to then manage your expenses. So in that particular instance, you're looking at developing cost-effective solutions that then benefit the actual business itself. And again, that development is coming from data that has been accordingly and appropriately collected, learning how to develop and make distinctive presentations, right? And these presentations assist in allowing stakeholders, in allowing individuals associated with the business, in allowing clientele, in allowing your particular workforce as well to understand exactly what's happening, and then being able to communicate what are these benefits in financial terms? Because remember, if you don't put an actual figure to any distinctive positive aspect, then it doesn't really speak directly to the business, does it? So it's important to ensure that whatever benefit that you've got, there's a cost implication according that is set accordingly, or that is applicable to your distinctive environment. So if we're saying that we've managed to cut on expenses, what is the figure associated there? So that we understand that, listen, if this was supposed to be undertaken over a 6-month period, it means that we are saving this much money associated with your business. And how does that then affect what's happening in terms of day-to-day runnings as far as your specific business environment there is concerned? Again, you are looking at an environment where when you go into a specific setup, you are not expected to know everything. I mean, that's nearly impossible, right? Especially if you're looking at it from a technological point of view, new technologies are coming in every other time, and it's important to understand that if you've got a base knowledge of what is happening across you're easy to school. And it makes it simpler when you walk into an environment and you still need to be schooled on a specific technology or a specific product. It all depends. So you're not expected to know everything. All right. So naturally, there's supposed to be a growth process in terms of, I think this is where the training we're talking about comes into play. The training is not just limited to the technology. It's not just limited to the product. It's not just limited to the service, but it's also looking at what's happening as far as that engagement with your clients and customers that we were expecting earlier on. So what is really expected is that you understand what role you play in achieving the goals of the actual business. So that's the main thing: understanding what part you play in the team, and how it literally looks at affecting business goals. At the same time, you're looking at your senior professionals looking at using business skills to then literally quantify proposed projects that are there. And these particular techniques would then include the cost benefits we were talking about earlier on, just comparing what are the costs associated with a certain something, and what are the benefits, and obviously of the two, which one is obviously higher than the other. If the costs outweigh the benefits, then it's something that you might want to look into or not want to engage in, literally, because it could detrimentally affect the business at large. If the benefits then outweigh the costs, then you want to, it's a default go-to, but at the same time, there has to be proper analysis there. And there has to be proper quantification in terms of what these particular benefits are from a monetary or economic aspect as far as your business environments would go. And then we can also even discuss ROI, which is short for return on investment. All right. So obviously, it looks at the entirety of that benefit from an economic point of view or financial point of view in comparison with the actual investment that is there. All right. So you again, it's looking at I think an expansion to a certain extent of the cost benefit analysis environment, where you're looking at that total financial benefit that is derived from an initial investment, and you compare it to the total costs of the actual project itself. Again, if your costs outweigh or the return outweigh the initial investments, then it's something that you might not want to engage in deeper, understand exactly why it's going that way, and then try and turn it around so that at least you find that the return is higher when it comes to your investment environments. And then a typical example of what you've got, a sample of costs and benefits that might literally be incorporated there. So obviously from an ICT point of view, hardware and software costs are taken into consideration. Your licensing, upgrading costs when you're discussing your software, looking at purchasing that software as opposed to probably renting it out. Your hardware, obviously, you're discussing computers, and remember, I think in this particular environment, it's important to look at that TCO we've mentioned before, which is your total cost of ownership that we've mentioned in previous sessions before. And then external services like outsourcing, looking at voice and data communications, cloud computing, and so on. What is happening there? Do these external service costs include one-time use of consultants as well as recurring services such as outsourcing services or otherwise? And then facilities as well. Remember, it doesn't just end at you just having a computer system, right? You're looking at the desk that that computer system needs to sit on. You're looking at the furniture in terms of your chairs, your utilities, your water and lights, for instance, in the environment, the office space at large. And arguably looking at what's happening in terms of security there as well, and what are the monthly implications, what are the once-off implications associated with your environment. So this is a typical example of what's happening as far as the actual costs versus the benefits. So when you're looking at your benefits, increased profits, decreased costs, those are typical examples of what you're looking at from a business sense, right? And then ultimately, you also need to look at intangible benefits that are there. So if you want to look at it from a different point of view, what you're actually discussing in this particular instance is looking at increased customer satisfaction. This is something that you can't literally put a finger to, but it's necessary and relevant because that speaks directly to your business. If customers are satisfied, they're bound to utilize your technology, service, or product more, or they're bound to give positive referrals, all right? Or they give a referral, actually. So it's in the positive sense. So that is a typical example of a benefit that is there, improved communication within your service desk, being an internal service desk or external, whichever way you look at it. But if communication is improved, both from your client and yourself, as well as employees, it means that we're good to go when it comes to environments at large. So these are typical examples of things that you can look at as far as your costs and your benefits are concerned. And again, as you can see, comparison between two alternatives here, right? You can have much more than that, but this just gives you an idea of what there has to be some kind of comparison, all right, between different alternatives for providing a distinctive service across the board. So when you're looking at non-tangible benefits, you normally use a numeric value that is there as far as your specific environments they are concerned. So that's a typical example of your cost-benefit environment. And then on the other hand, your ROI calculation there, from a percentage point of view, your net benefits over your project investment, we need to look at it from a percentage point of view. So you got your net benefits there over a project investment, and then naturally multiply that by 100 in order for you to get the distinctive percentage that you've got there. So it's important to identify, obviously, the actual link between the two. And again, going back to the whole cost-benefit analysis environment, where ROI is another indication of you checking whether the initial investment associated with your business is being outweighed by the returns, which is a positive. Obviously, if it's vice versa, then it is something that needs to be looked into to ensure that there's some benefit that arises from your initial investments there. And then when you're looking at the technical skills, again, this is just understanding exactly support for specific products or technologies within that environment. Certain training needs to be undertaken, obviously, because most of these products and services within the ICT space, rather, are not generic. So it's important to understand how to function, the specifics there. That's the reason why we constantly talk about the training that is still relevant from a product point of view, And again, as you can see, it varies based on the customer's technical needs. What is the customer looking at as far as your environment would go? It's more technical, obviously a more technically inclined individual needs to be incorporated there. If it's less technical, same difference applies. And then obviously computer literacy skills rather are expected even for these entry-level positions. You need to have some literacy that is there. Sometimes we take it for granted that literally everyone is clued and knows how to use these machines, but it's not always the case, even in the time that we're in. So it's important to not take that for granted and ensure that there's some semblance of understanding in terms of what's happening as far as these technical skills would go. And then obviously knowledge of support telephone systems, incident reporting systems, knowledge management systems. These are all expected within that support industry. All right, so understand exactly how to use the means in which these particular clients or customers want to engage in, and obviously what they use as a means of reporting certain problems that might be experienced with a product or a service or an actual technology. And then, as you can see, like we've been mentioning, that a lot of institutions out there, the last point that you've got there, most of these institutions look at training their individuals in these specific systems. All right. And then how do you assess skill sets, right? Especially from a technical point of view. How do you check that this particular individual is now clued on what is happening, or has now been schooled appropriately on this particular product, service, or techno? Again, basic education is necessary there. Certification programs are out there that test individuals and obviously grade them accordingly in terms of them understanding a product, service, or technology. Basic asking of questions, the testing will always come part and parcel of these particular assessment platforms. So again, education, certification, and asking is still associated with testing at large. And then also looking at basic problem solving. How are they solving problems that are coming in from clients across the board? Again, when you discuss soft skills, on the other hand, what are the qualities that are needed for a particular grade service? Most of us might have experienced this personally, where the individual that you're speaking to is not listening to what you actually are having problems with. It's either they're cutting you mid-sentence or ultimately they just choose not to actually understand specifically what it is that you want to portray. Because remember, the reason why you're calling in is not necessarily because you're not technically inclined, but because you don't understand what's happening with the actual product, service, or technology, right? So you need individuals that can understand what is being portrayed at all levels, regardless of when and where. So it's important to have some kind of active listening skills to ensure that you understand specifically what this client might be experiencing and what it is that you then might provide for as far as skill sets or resolution is concerned. Verbal skills, customer skills, problem solving, right? It's not just a question of actively listening, but obviously being able to provide proper services. As far as your setup is concerned, be of a solid temperament, just to make sure that we don't let our emotions get in the way when it comes to working with clients or customers. Your temperament needs to be of a professional nature, be able to work in a team, and also if you then need to provide written feedback or need to engage within the written platform there, you need to ensure that you've got the proper writing skills. So these are typical examples of the skills that are necessary and what it actually means to have soft skills when you're providing any distinctive service across the board there. So again, active listening, verbal skills, customer service skills, problem solving, temperament, teamwork, and ultimately writing skills are imperative for you to ensure that there's some kind of success within your environment. And then if you look at what we've got there on screen, continuation of what is happening with your soft skills. These are recognized as important skills that are obviously required in making sure that your service desk functions accordingly. And it's important to know how to properly engage with individuals. Right, and yes, life does happen. Yes, it's all ups and downs accordingly, right? But it's important that within that professional workspace, you always have a positive attitude, and without that positive attitude, then it's detrimental to success. So be able to get along with individuals. I think within your own academic environments, you should have a module that enables you to. One of the modules that you're going to be working as a team. It's important, or working within a project. It's important to ensure that you get along with individuals accordingly, and at the same time you develop or display a positive attitude in order for there to be a engaging success there. And then look at competitiveness within the actual organization in terms of everything that this organization might provide for. So competitive nature in terms of if you do well, you are rewarded accordingly, and market-related remunerations and so on, so that you're ahead of the pack when it comes to competition across the board. So this will obviously enable individuals to be productive. You're not frustrated if you're being remunerated accordingly, if you're being rewarded for brilliant performance. You obviously you're less prone to frustration in your environment. If you're also given opportunities of advancement in your line of work as well, you tend to be less prone to frustration. And then, like we were mentioning before, if you've got an environment that accommodates for something that's competitive in nature, literally, you're bound to enjoy more of what it is that you're doing. So you're enjoying working within the service desk environment and the support industry, because that industry that you're in literally takes care of you as an individual or as a team dependent. And again, to conclude, what's happening with your soft skills, they make it difficult to assess in interviews because remember, when someone pops in for an interview, you look at his resume. Literally, they've like plugged in the experience there. They've plugged in the qualifications and so on. So in just basic engaging with an individual for that 45 minutes, for that 30 minutes, or for that hour, as far as the interview is concerned, you might not be able to pick up these particular soft skills that are relevant and necessary in this distinctive industry. So what you might then want to do is have ways and means to try and check for them, or to try and assess for them. And that would include things like past experiences, the testing and certification we're talking about earlier on. Role playing is ultimately important as well. And then written examples, or writing samples rather, of what is happening as far as the soft skill environment is concerned. So this is also a way in which you can use to assess these soft skills, because they're literally imperative when you're looking at a basic success of your setup. Now, when you're looking at the whole concept of, see if we can, okay, there you go. So if you look at the whole concept of what is happening as far as management skills are concerned, right? When self-management means that you can literally undertake your what you're supposed to do, or your professional responsibilities, without having the need to be micromanaged, or without having the need to be supervised in certain instances. So literally, what these would do. These are necessary so that you know how to properly manage your time, you know how to manage your stress levels, you know how to ensure that you try and avoid frustration and the burnout. Remember, when you overwork yourself, it can be detrimental to your health. It can also be detrimental to the actual service at large. So stress management skills, time management, organizational skills, and then learning and acknowledgement knowledge acquisition skills are also imperative. Again, like we were mentioning earlier on, as far as the soft skills are concerned, these are also difficult to assess during an interview. So normally you might have to have different techniques that are incorporated just by, or just that are different just by, or that are different to speaking to an individual. So ultimately, the same soft skill assessments you can use in this particular environment as well. And obviously, it's ongoing, right? Because you might be good in a certain time frame, but not in another, depending on what is happening around you, or even within your own personal environments. That's the reason why it's important to have it as an ongoing setup that is there. All right, and then when you look at the whole concept of these management skills or management personnel, you're looking at working with environments where larger service desks may assign more than one individual to each manager position, right? Because remember, when we talked about your large service desk, you've got 25 or more incorporated within your environment. So you might need more individuals that are there to oversee what is happening on the floor there. And in smaller environments, probably then that's where you need to have your team leaders, your service desk managers and senior managers as just one individual across, because it's easier to manage. So between smaller and medium, it's doable for you to have one individual associated with that platform. But when it's a much larger environment, then naturally there's a difference that is there. And then what are the required skills that are necessary or that are relevant when it comes to this environment? Obviously, there has to be some kind of background in customer service, all right? And it has to be extensive so that at least it makes it easier for you to understand where that particular institution is going, where they've come from, and what they actually need from you. The planning experience that is there, abilities to manage distinctive budgets, communication skills is a given. And then also looking at being able to present new ideas there, manage processes, and again, the technical skills we were talking about earlier on that are literally not at the same level as the analysts and the specialists. Obviously need to be above that so that you understand exactly what is happening within your distinctive environments that are there. And I think it's important to understand that the whole issue of experience is paramount, because if someone has not been within that industry or not engaged with clients or customers per se, makes it a lot difficult as far as your setup is concerned. And then the supporting roles that you are looking at, this is obviously associated with your frontline and management staff. That would obviously rely on others for things like tools, information, and distinctive processes. Persons may perform, one person may perform a number of supporting roles, but obviously it's important to understand that the workload is also still manageable within this distinctive environment, and also being able to rotate through these particular roles so that at least you manage a workload, you also manage enthusiasm, you also expose individuals to different platforms that are there. And it provides some kind of diversity. And remember, the whole concept of something being enjoyable is that it becomes diverse. It's the same thing across. it becomes monotonous, and when it becomes second nature, sometimes there's no growth process that is there, or there's no alignment in you enjoying what it is that you're doing. But obviously, if you're looking at something that is diverse, or there's some kind of diversity associated with your setup, it's easy for individuals to get engaged, and for you to retain your staff as well. So I think it's important to understand that aspect when it comes to these specific supporting roles, that if you rotate and look at proper management of workloads across the individuals or the support staff that you've got within your environment, it provides for more engagement and for more enjoyment as well, as far as actual job structure there is concerned. And then typical examples of the chart that you'd get associated with your service desk organization is something along these lines. So you've got your senior manager that we initially had, your service desk manager, the team leaders or the supervisors are there. If you remember our first image, we were looking at dispatchers and level 1 analysts. But now you look at different team leaders now looking at level 1 specialists, network management specialists, service management and improvement specialists, knowledge engineers rather, and technical support. So this is a typical example of your service desk organizational chart that has supporting roles. The previous one that we saw did not have any supporting roles that were there, but this just gives you an idea now in terms of what is happening as far as your environments there is concerned. So knowledge management systems are necessary for you to understand specifically what's happening as far as your space is concerned, and ultimately how you would provide for better service within those environments. So a typical example of what's happening as far as your knowledge management administration there now is concerned, these are tools that it's all about using data to analyze accordingly. So a set of tools and databases that store, manage, and present information sources. All right. So these enable you to make proper decisions rather, to complete distinctive tasks. And again, it goes to, or it links directly to the whole concept of analyzing business problems, and obviously being able to provide proper and distinctive solutions there. And you'll discover that they can also be known as known error databases, where a problem that has been documented before, and you know exactly what has caused it, and you know what the workaround is. So obviously, when you disseminate that, when you encounter that same thing, it makes it a lot easier for you to take into consideration. If you look at page 98 of your prescribed textbooks, you will discover that you find that a knowledge engineer is responsible for just developing and overseeing that process, and just ensuring that the proper information is contained within that knowledge management system, and the correct and accurate information is also remember, correctness, accuracy, and completeness is necessary in ensuring that you provide a proper solution accordingly. And obviously, it has to be current as far as configurations they are concerned. And then when you look at things like network monitoring on page 99 of your prescribed textbook, you'll see that these are tools that are incorporated that enable you to monitor and literally observe what is happening with your network. What is the network performance there? Do we have issues in terms of the specific locality? What are those issues? Why are they arising? How can we solve them? So it's important to always ensure that when you've got a network put in place, especially when you're looking at it from an ISP point of view, these particular networks are being monitored accordingly, so that you can provide better service should need arise as far as your environments they are concerned. So I understand that, okay, what are the peak periods? What is happening with your connection at these peak times? And what can we do to ensure that people don't experience downtimes, or they don't experience connectivity loss, or slowness in connection dependent? And these monitoring platforms are obviously remote and include the whole concept of network management systems. Normally, your level one analysts and specialists are the ones that use these tools. So that if you call in and you mention that, okay, look, I'm experiencing downtime, or I'm experiencing slow speed as far as connectivity is concerned, they can quickly check that monitoring platform to say, okay, in your locality, there's upgrades that are taking place, or there's maintenance that is taking place, or ultimately we might be experiencing distinctive problems as far as that particular area is concerned because of weather issues, whichever way you look at it, as typical examples that are there. And normally this is incorporated as a separate function, just to ensure that there's some kind of correctness associated with information that is disseminated there. And then when you look at service management and improvement, 100 of your prescribed textbook looks at monitoring service desk performance and identifying, overseeing improvements. Remember, that same service desk also needs to be monitored accordingly and then data being accessed properly to check what is actually happening and to ensure that content is there accordingly. What is happening in terms of the way in which clients or customers are being assisted, what are the shortfalls and or what are the drawbacks, and what do we typically need to distinctively encounter there. Right, and then obviously a large service desk may assign more than one individual for these particular tasks. Smaller desk, as the name or the scenario would provide for, you'd have a management or staff perform this on a part-time basis, just to ensure that there's some individual that is checking. Because remember, in a smaller environment, you've got less resources associated with that, as far as content is concerned. And normally improvement of service management literally provides that appropriate customer service and support in organizations. And it's very difficult for you to manage anything that you aren't measuring. How do you manage something that has got no measure to it? So it's important to take consideration there. And then when you're looking at technical support 101, and again, I think it's a bit of repetition from what we've discussed before. That again, with technical support, you've got specific individuals in large organizations, one or more specific in smaller organizations, management or staff on an as needed basis. And then some organizations would have level 2 staff perform these tasks, dependent on your distinctive setup that is there. And then obviously training, ultimately imperative. I think we've been discussing training for a while now, to mention the fact that without it, it makes it very difficult for you to look at some semblance of improvement and to ensure that the clientele that you've got understands exactly how they're supposed to manage content there. So looking at developing programs, working with other support groups to create these programs, and ultimately also acquiring programs for commercial from commercial sources. So it's a way of looking at some kind of formal training to your daily cross-training and mentoring environments, just to ensure that everything is undertaken accordingly. So your service desk environments rely on companies training, the company's training department. So if it's something that is internal, there has to be a separate department that's responsible for all the training that might be relevant within your distinctive industry there. And obviously, characteristics of an actual service, a successful service desk, is looking at the distinctive ability to collaborate, the effective comms we were talking about earlier on, consensus sought and reached, enhanced capability, and naturally that sense of commitment that you've got associated with your environment. So this is the generics when it comes to what's happening as far as the people part of your service desk is concerned. And if you want to look at a summary of what we've just taken into consideration there, just understanding the whole concept of your frontline service providers, service desk management, and then the management rather, and the distinctive supporting roles. And what you're actually looking at in this environment is that rewarding and exciting places to work normally offer a variety of those distinctive roles that are there. And then primary service desk responsibilities, that single point of contact that we've mentioned before, ensuring there's some kind of value that is delivered to your customers, and ensuring that information is readily available accordingly. And then from another point of view, your job responsibilities versus your professional environments, ensuring that you understand the whole concept of the skills that are distinctively required from business all the way to self-management, and also ensuring that you understand what's happening with the sizes and how these sizes literally affect what is happening as far as your support industry there is concerned. All right. Do we have any questions or contributions from the floor? I think most of that content was pretty self-explanatory, but it's important for us to understand and ensure that we're all on the same page there. All right. Do we have any questions or contributions? I'm just going to quickly unmute. All right, so anyone that has questions or contributions or concerns, you can fire away either via chat or by unmuting yourself. Any questions or contributions there? Questions, contributions, or concerns? Questions, contributions, or concerns? Anyone? So I'm going to be uploading this this is being recorded as well, so upload it on the YouTube channel. I'm going to quickly just incorporate the link in the chat for those who can view. For those who can't, what I'll do is I'll post it via email. So there's a link in the chat there in terms of the actual website. Should you need to access content, you will find it there. All right. So any questions, contributions, or concerns from the floor? Questions, contributions, or concerns? All right, so nothing is coming through. I'm assuming that we are all sorted on that. Should you need to go through this again, like I said before, I'll upload it on that YouTube channel, and then you can have a quick look at content again. And should you still have questions that might then arise, you can pop me a mail, and then we can engage ourselves accordingly there. All right, thanks for attending. Stay safe, keep smiling. I'll see you in tomorrow's session. Cheers.